Welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations, your authority in navigating the world of homeschooling diverse learners. Featuring Peggy Ployer from SPED Homeschool, Annie Yorty from AnnieYorty.com, Leilani Melendez from Living with Eve, Stephanie Buckwalter from eLARP Learning, and Dawn Jackson from Dawn Jackson Educational Consulting and Tutoring. With over 75 years of combined homeschooling expertise, experiences, and perspectives, this group is eager to share their wealth of wisdom to empower your homeschooling journey. So grab your favorite mug, settle in, and get ready for insightful discussions, valuable insights, and practical tips. Give your homeschool the power boost it needs to successfully educate the unique learners in your home.
Welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. I'm Annie Yorty, your host for today. Today, we're going to talk about rooted in learning, embracing nature's classroom in homeschooling. And our guest today is Joy Burns. Now, Joy is, let's put her picture up here. Joy is a retired homeschool mother of 3 who now works as a garden educator at the JC Raulston Arboretum at North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. Joy brings both her professional experience in writing, editing, and communications, plus her experience as a homeschool teacher to develop and present nature programming in the garden setting. She enjoys working with public and private school teachers, homeschoolers, families, community volunteers, and children of all ages. So, Joy, I am so excited to have you here today. Welcome, and thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
I would like to start off just to give you an opportunity to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself, because you haven't been on here before. So please share a little bit.
Sure. Well, I'm a proud Buckeye. I live in North Carolina now, but I'm from the state of Ohio, and I'm proud of it. I graduated with a degree in communications and worked about 15 years before starting my family in nonprofit communications. That was kind of my niche. I really liked working for mission-based organizations and writing, editing, and creating programming. And eventually met my husband and married and had 3 children. And I soon realized that I just really loved being at home with my kids, and that I liked learning right alongside them. And so that led me into homeschooling, which I never in a million years thought I was going to do. But I loved the idea of being home with my kids and learning, like I said, right alongside them, and have become a lifelong learner myself. And when my youngest was in high school, almost done with her high school career, I realized I needed to do something to keep myself going, and because they were moving on, and so I kind of started what I call my encore career, because I never, again, in a million years thought I would be working at a public garden, but I saw a position for a garden educator at NC State, and I had really come to love nature study with my kids when we were homeschooling. And so that kind of, I was really more formally introduced to nature study because of homeschooling, but that's what led me into this new career of working with kids and their families and with public school teachers, in coming to visit the garden and helping to arrange those visits and teach them while they're there. So
yeah, it sounds like a great, like we often have things we don't expect, but our path leads into these interesting little, seasons of life, right?
Right.
Well, why is it important for kids to go outside and spend time in nature? And, I'd like to just talk about some of the benefits that we find from doing that.
Well, yeah, I think we intuitively know that being outside is good for us. We might not think about exactly why, but you don't have to search very far to find studies that show that being outside is indeed good for us. And, just the physical aspects of walking and hiking and biking and tree climbing and or just being outside breathing fresh air is good for us physically. It promotes strong muscles and healthy hearts, and even the sun generates a vitamin that we need, vitamin D, that helps with our bones and our teeth growth and strengthens our immune systems, helps us to fight off infections. So there's a lot of physical reasons why we want to be outside. Being exposed to the sun can help us regulate our sleep cycles. And you know what it feels like when you've been outside and you've been working hard or playing hard, and then you come in and you rest for a minute, and how good that deep sleep feels after you physically have exerted yourself. So lots of physical benefits, even mentally positive, very, very positive for us. Improves our mood when we go outside, just can help us to manage anxiety and stress, because we all have that. And exposure to just natural things, trees and water and sunlight, can actually lower our cortisol levels, which reduces stress and anxiety. Being outside can be very creative and inspiring, and just immersing ourselves in beauty can take us to a new place with new ideas and inspiration. And then finally, just socially, spending time with others outside can create positive, fun interactions and strengthen our relationships. Thinking about how fun it is to sit around a campfire and tell stories or roast a marshmallow. All of those things are benefits of being outside. They, whether it's physical or mental or socially, there's lots of good reasons to go outside. But do we do it enough? Maybe not.
Well, probably not. I'm inspired. I'm ready to head outside. Now it's really cold here, but there are benefits of being outside during any time of the year, right?
Yes.
You don't need to wait for good weather.
Right. Yeah. There's that old saying, there's no inappropriate weather, just inappropriate clothing. Yeah. Yeah. If you are dressed for winter, you're going to love being outside. What kid doesn't love to put on their mittens and boots and hats and go out and go sledding? Well, maybe there are a few kids that don't like to do that because they're not used to doing that. But if we can get outside and have a rain jacket that sheds water, or boots that help us keep our feet dry, that's helpful, but it still doesn't make it impossible. I think we become very accustomed to being very comfortable physically. I'm even thinking in the summer, it gets pretty hot in North Carolina. And sometimes I have to push myself more even in the summer to go out than I do in other seasons, because it's a little bit milder here for winter season, for instance. But I think it's important to push ourselves to that little bit of discomfort, and to help our kids push themselves towards a little bit of discomfort. It's good for us to be exposed to different elements and to experience the world in all of those different settings and seasons.
Oh yeah. And we, as moms homeschooling, we may need to train ourselves too.
Right.
And to set the example to go out there with our kids. And we may face a little bit of resistance if it hasn't been part of our normal routine to get outside. But we can train our children and just overcome the fussing about it. If there is some, overcome that, and just get out there and show them. It's fun to just run around and, and enjoy the world outside. And so they'll get there. You need to bring them along with patience and just teach them to experience it. Yeah. Right.
Well, help cultivate that sense of wonder, because if you are interested in it and you think something is unusual or interesting, they're going to wonder, what is it that she's so taken by? Yeah. So definitely it is a lot of modeling from a parent standpoint or a teacher standpoint. I'm often just showing the kids how to be curious about things, which sounds weird. Like kids are born curious. But I think we very quickly get into these habits of thinking we know it all, and that nothing is all that interesting. I don't know. But it is modeling that curiosity for our kids and letting them know that it's okay to be curious.
Yes. Well, and in our world with all the media and it's fast-paced type of media, and it trains our brains to just kind of crave that type of environment. But we can retrain ourselves to learn to appreciate something that isn't constantly, playing on, over and over, or jumping to a new thing, a new video or whatever. We can train ourselves and our kids through that. So I think that's, something I think instinctively as parents, we know that's good for our kids to get them out of that rut. Mm-hmm. So what are some activities that you would recommend for kids to do when they're out in nature? Especially when we're training them, we need to come prepared to this. And so let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you just start with playing outside, away from, like you said, away from virtual worlds, and into the outdoors where things are concrete and physical, where kids are hiking and biking and tree climbing and digging. All of those things are important physical activities for them to participate in. And then, that might lead to something else, caring for a garden, where you're having them learn with you, alongside you, about the tasks of caring for plants, digging and planting and watering and getting your hands dirty and playing with worms and figuring out what those pests are, or figuring out what the beneficial insects are for your garden. And the joy of being able to harvest something, to clip a flower that you had planted, months ago, a seed that you'd planted, or pulling a vegetable off of a vine that, you had part in caring for. Talk about satisfaction. I mean, that's just so satisfying to see all of those things develop, and then you get to enjoy the product of that plant. So, I mean, those are just some really natural things to me that you can do, even if you're not planting vegetables. If you've got a few flower pots on a patio, and caring for flowers like that, that's fine. You can go as deep as you want. It doesn't have to be a full-blown, farm in order for you to enjoy being outside. In fact, you don't even have to garden to enjoy nature study and being out, taking advantage of the greenways that are around you, the parks, and whether they're city parks or county or state or national parks, getting outside to explore what those things have to offer. Those are all things you can do to engage your kids with outdoor activities. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would just echo the sentiment that you don't have to make this a big production. I mean, you may want to learn how, if you don't know how to garden, there's lots of resources on the internet, but you start at a reasonable pace, and it might just be a couple pots on your patio. It might be something indoors, but that, in the winter time too, that you get started there. But when you're outside, it doesn't have to be like an overwhelming thing. Just start at a small, at whatever you might be able to do. But I mean, I confess, I have a brown thumb. I am terrible at growing things, but I would plant a small garden, with a couple raised beds, because with my kids, because I knew that was a good thing for them to see, even, the part about where does our food come from, to show them on a small scale, something like that, but then to get them involved and just see what it takes to produce that food. And there is joy, a lot of joy for me, especially when something actually grows and I can eat it.
Yes.
So yeah, I encourage you, if you've never done something like that before, just start on a small scale. Mm-hmm.
Right. And really, you don't even have, like I said, you can walk down the sidewalk and admire the weeds that are growing out between the cracks of the sidewalk. That's literally how how you can start with nature study, is just by studying what's already there in front of you, whether you've had anything to do with it or not. So
true. That's true. Yeah. We can just start by observing what's in nature. When you actually spend a little bit more than, time running to and from a car, you start to notice, I mean, the world is full of wonder. You used that word earlier.
Right.
And it is indeed even the weeds, that we don't really think we like, but there's something interesting about them, and we can start to learn to notice those things. So as far as getting out there with some of these activities, and you talked about nature studies. How would you advise parents to study it? Like, what does that mean for kids to go out there and study nature?
Yeah, and here's what I've really realized since leading homeschooling and now working with more public school teachers. The beauty of homeschooling is that you have the option of going outside, and it really breaks my heart sometimes. Public school teachers and in a more formal setting like that, they have so many demands placed on them that there often isn't the time or sometimes even the safe physical space for them to take their students outside. So homeschoolers have this huge advantage of being able to use outdoors as a classroom. And yes, there are public schools that are using the outside as a public classroom, but to really be able to slow down and savor what is around you is a gift that is really should not be overlooked as an advantage for homeschooling. And so being able to use all of your senses of sight and smell and touch, and being able to slow down and use those unique ways of experiencing the natural world, that I think is one of the big advantages that we have as homeschool families. So getting outside can be as easy as, go grab a nature book. It can be a chapter book, or it could be a picture book. There's lots of great picture books as a jumping off point. If you want to tie this to your academics as a homeschooler, just go outside and read a nature book, read a book, and then explore and see what you can find around you that has to do with that theme or that idea. Another fun, in fact, we do have one program at the Arboretum where we invite middle schoolers to come and just hang out with us in the garden, and I read aloud to them. And it's been a really popular program. We read The Secret Garden. There's nothing like reading The Secret Garden while you're sitting outside under the trees.
Yeah.
It was very, very fun. But anyway, so I kind of, books are kind of central to homeschooling. So I often start with a book. If you're headed on vacation to the beach, grab a few books that are about the beach, the shells, the sea life, whatever. And make some connections that way. Maybe by introducing some things through a book first, it makes it more interesting to explore it then and really see if you can find what's been discussed in that book. So that's one place to start. Another idea would be another way to kind of connect some academics to spending the time outside is through nature journaling. It can be a great way to combine things like using words and pictures and numbers to collect information and record your natural observations and record your questions and your connections and maybe the way you might explain things by writing it down. Nature journaling, I think people misunderstand it to some degree. It's not about art. It is about collecting your observations and becoming better at observing what is really right in front of you. Because it's interesting, you think you know what a flower looks like because we have this picture in our mind, right, of what a flower looks like. But when you sit down and you take a specific flower and you try to recreate it physically as a picture, you have to slow down and really wait, what is the center of this flower? And how many petals does it really have? Does it just have a whole bunch, or is there a specific number of petals? What is the shape and the color and the texture? All of those things require you to just really slow down and really look and see what's in front of you. And when you begin to do that, you begin to like I said, you can make connections that you might not have made before. I like to start with 3 kinds of phrases when I'm getting people to start journaling. And by the way, journaling, doesn't require a lot of fancy tools. It can be a single piece of paper and a pencil. You can have a journal, you could have a book that you use repeatedly, but you can also make it more like a scrapbook where you're capturing things and then cutting it out and putting it in your book later if you want. There's no right or wrong way to do nature journaling in terms of what you include or don't include. It's really up to you. But paper, unlined paper, a pencil, maybe a pen. Some people will choose to use color pencils or watercolors to add that information in. Other things that would be fun to have, but you don't have to have are, a ruler to measure things, or a magnifying glass to be able to see things more closely, or binoculars to see things more far away. All of those things are helpful, but seriously, you can start as simply as a piece of paper and a pencil. And there's really all ages can participate in nature journaling. It's a fun activity that is good for, from the minute you can hold a pencil, or even you could narrate things that you see to mom. If you're not quite writing yet, that's fine. Narrate, tell her what you see, and she can jot down those observations in a book for you. But I like to start with these 3 phrases, back to that. The first one is just to think, what do I notice? What is it that I'm seeing? And try to be specific about what am I seeing with my eyes, really seeing, not what do I think I see, but what do I literally see? And then what do I hear, and how does it feel? What do I observe? So what is it you are noticing? Then get curious and say, I wonder what questions do you have? Where did this come from? Or why is it this way? Or when or how? Lots of questions. What is it that you don't know about this object or this setting? And then to make connections, think of the phrase, it reminds me of, and then fill in the blank. Connect what you're seeing with things you already know. And these are ways to capture. These are phrases that help me think about how to capture new information or my own observations about what's right in front of me. So those are kind of like the very, very basics of nature journaling, and being good at observing what's really in front of you.
I absolutely love that. Just those 3 questions are such a great tool for us to springboard off of, because if you didn't grow up doing this yourself, as you're a mom now trying to model this for your kids, you may not really even feel equipped yourself to be able to go out there and know what to do. Like, just look at a flower. Okay. But you actually have given some tools. And I love how you point out that this is for all ages. As moms and dads who are, and just going out together as a family, that no one needs to be excluded from this. And I would also just say for our audience, this is for all abilities too. The outdoors is important for all our children, regardless of, what their learning differences might be. So I think we have to be creative sometimes. If we have a child that learns differently, we can be creative about how to do this. But it's important for all our children to go out there and feel things, like you mentioned, like concrete parts of the world around us. And so I would just, as a mom to a child with Down syndrome, writing took a very long time. So, and drawing wasn't, when she would draw things, it didn't look like,
Right.
any kind of great work of art. But you've already mentioned that there's no
Right.
pressure about that. This is the
Excuse me.
drawing is a great way, however good or poor of an artist your child may be.
Right.
They're using another part of their brain to capture what they're seeing and recreate it in a way that makes sense to them.
Yes.
And so, let them try to do that if they're able. I do like that you mentioned, like, even a child can dictate to a parent what they're noticing. If they're verbal, they can do that. You can ask questions to get all their senses involved and let them dictate to you. Or, we used to often go out in the beginning of different seasons and take nature walks and have a camera where we would take pictures of things that we were seeing and then come back to the house. And, I actually printed them out and we made scrapbooks with them. So, and then, depending on your child's ability, they can write things about the pictures that we've included in the scrapbook, or look up more information. Like you said, bring in that connection point from outdoors, something new they saw, to their own lives. So you could also use video. Let your child explore some part of nature and video that on your phone, and then use that and look at it again to reinforce what you've been doing and learning from your time outside in nature. So
Right.
I think the sky's the limit. We don't need to say, oh, my child can't do that, because there's some way to interact.
Access it. Yes. And, cultivating that sense of wonder and appreciation for the natural world, it's, what we're hoping that leads to. Not only is it a benefit to, we talked about all the benefits it is to us, but we also hope that we're leading kids to wanting to continue to care for and protect what God has given us and to steward the earth well. And if we don't understand how it works, or why the importance of natural items and just the environment, then we're not going to care for it as well or love it as well. You have to, we love things that we know. And if you don't know the environment, if you don't know what's out there around you, then you're not probably going to care about it as much. And so that's also what we're trying to build, that appreciation among ourselves and our children, so that they'll want to care for the earth.
Right. And I would say to think outside the box a little bit, just when we go out in nature, that it may not be just about, we may think like nature might be the trees or the flowers or something like that. Sometimes we just need to go out there and lay on the grass and look at the clouds in the sky.
Yes.
Or just sit, if you're near a beach sometime. Just, I like how you brought in this idea about, even when you go on vacation, take advantage of those new environments to see what's different there.
Yes.
And I'm a big book lover too. So I would have had shelves full of those kinds of books that would be, about different animals, or, and the zoo is another place to go and observe nature, a different part of nature. So, the sky is the limit. So anyways, well, let's just talk about, you talked about some questions to ask yourself as you're observing nature, and well, let's back up a minute. I can just hear, because I would have been one of these parents that's saying, oh my word, I have so many things to do in my homeschool day. Where would I find the time to go sit and look at the clouds, to sit for any extended period of time and, observe, or to dig around in the dirt, just like, who has time for that? Right. So let's talk about, like, how can we in reality make this actually happen?
Well, I think if you think that these benefits are important for your student and for and for nature itself. Just that we be observant, that you'll find a way to I think we schedule what we think is a priority. And so it's, it's a bit of a reordering of thinking, okay, there are some natural ways you can weave these into your routine, but sometimes maybe you need to just schedule, make sure that one day a month you're visiting something that's outdoor related. Or, I mean, people will approach it in various ways, just weaving it in with the day-to-day. I mean, it could be as simple as just driving to co-op with your windows down in the car. I don't know, to really feel the temperature. I don't know, to really think about what the weather's like outside. I don't know. Or you could actually schedule participating in some type of outdoor activity. And, as a educator at a public garden, that's one of our major jobs. I mean, not because we are forced to, but we love to share what we have available at the garden. And we want people to come and visit. It doesn't do us any good to create these beautiful collections of plants if there aren't people there to see them and to learn about them. And so, half of our mission is to educate people about these plant collections that we have. And there are plenty of other educators like that in museums and zoos and parks and botanical gardens like ours that they have the heart of a teacher. They want to reach out and share their knowledge with you. So beginning to access that, lots of places now are offering homeschool days, but that's not the only day that you can go and visit these locations. So making sure that you are with, and go with friends.
That's what I was just thinking too.
There's nothing like a great field trip with friends, right? So finding a place to go together, again, it's going to improve social skills, and it's just fun. And learning something together, so that it makes maybe it less of a burden and more of a joy for you to get your kids outside.
Yeah, I think that the priority, we do have to set priorities, and priorities mean that we make choices. We may leave one thing behind to choose another that we think is better. So, and those choices are hard, but I would encourage us to, everyone does need this. There are so many great benefits of spending time outdoors that I think we can, just kids you're going to see benefits in your academics and things like that as we go forward. But the other thing you mentioned is friends, going with someone, and that always can make something new more attractive. But I would also say, as I think about, when we go with friends, find some friends who are sort of like-minded about what you're trying to do out in nature, that you are trying to teach your children to slow down and appreciate the world and to observe. So maybe not a whole horde of I'm envisioning some of my co-op field trips where, a horde of boys went, just all out. So, and I've noticed that they may not take the time to just as they're just kind of in their own natural state, they're going to just kind of race from one thing to another a lot of times. But we can teach them, and maybe take a smaller group or something like that fosters a little bit slower pace.
In the appreciation. Right. And, we work with large and small groups of kids at the garden, and always we are trying to do things in a hands-on way too. So if there is some activity you can do together to kind of help steer that energy toward exploration, that's helpful as well. But I do agree with you. You do have to find some like-minded friends and be on the same page with the other moms or dads that are about what you're trying to accomplish that day. And really, there's room for, we're taking in information in lots of different ways. And there's room for climbing trees, and there's room for laying quietly and staring at clouds. So
right, because even if you're climbing the trees, there's something to observe up there.
Exactly.
About the tree or about the leaves or about the height or whatever.
Let me make it clear that if you're going to a botanical garden, you're probably not going to be climbing trees.
Gotcha.
Probably should back up and make sure
a little bit.
You do want to behave appropriately in the settings that you are in. So anyway, just a little aside there.
Good point. Well, and also taking time to discuss amongst yourselves, like after you've spent your time doing whatever, whether it's hands-on or just sitting and observing and noticing and maybe asking these 3 questions that you talked about, that you can share with your friends. What did you see? What was exciting about that to you? And they're going to start, like, one's going to notice one kind of thing, another will notice something else. But when they start sharing it, then everything blossoms for them. So that's the cool thing about having a couple people going out together, with a friend or something. And the peers begin to support one another to enjoy these activities.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Well, we've talked a lot about observations, that we're making observations, and how does these activities improve our ability to observe, and then what benefits does that bring us, in other areas of life?
Right. Yeah. Most of our, let me back up. I read an article recently about medical students who were, they began to incorporate nature study into the curriculum of medical school. And I'm like, okay, what is that about? And it was because they realized that nature study was a great way for these students to really hone their observation skills, which is critical when you are diagnosing somebody related to any kind of disease or physical problem that they have. And really, when you think about it, observation is a critical skill for all of us to have, to gather accurate information, to not not repeat what we think is true, but to really see what is accurate, and to understand an object or a situation better so that you can provide accurate information. Then based on that, you can improve your decision making. You can make an informed choice based on that accurate information. And we all are making various decisions, but it can also help you with your problem solving, to anticipate things that might be coming your way and to proactively address a problem before it becomes a bigger problem. Just in general, better observation, it will lead to better communication and effective communication. And who doesn't want that? I mean, it just enhances our life in so many different ways. And those skills are important, not just for students, but for all of us, professionals, for if you're in any type of relationship, don't you want to be able to communicate better with those that you are in relationship with? So, it can strengthen our relationships with each other because we are communicating better. And even really concrete things, like it can increase our awareness, our safety awareness. Like if you smell something that smells like fire burning, or you smell, you can identify a hazard or something dangerous to protect yourself or get away from something. There's so many different ways that being a good observer can improve your life and help you grow as a person. Whether you're learning on your own or you're learning from your peers, there's always room for improvement and change, and being able to understand yourself and others through your observations can be huge, and it can make life much more interesting and meaningful and productive and pleasant. So, there is always room for improvement for all of us to increase our skill of observation so that we can be more attuned to what's going on around us and how to interact with our environment. So, yeah, I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't benefit from improving skill in that area. And so this is just one fun way to do that, to help slow down and really be more observant.
Well, that's really a rich observation about observing skills, because, think about how often we want our children to, observe well in the academic world, for instance. When they read a passage, we want them to comprehend it fully. Right. And so what you're training them to do with these very concrete things, they now can transfer to, words on a page and taking in the details of words on a page. And I know, I'm not studying in a school setting, but I, for instance, study my Bible. And when I can slow down and apply these observation skills, I all of a sudden will see new meanings, like see new words that I missed before, or something about the setting, or something about the attitude of a person that's conveyed through the words that I didn't notice before. And so the same is true for our kids when they're reading, or when they're doing their math, whatever area of math you're studying. There's so much that the ability to notice the details will really serve them in the academic setting as well. I would say it's going to serve our kids in the spiritual setting to notice what God is, who he is, his nature. Of course, the Bible says that the world that God created declares his glory. So that's another thing you can add into your observation and discussion. Well, how does what you're seeing show something about God? So these are all ways to just form not just skills, but attitudes and just character, even in your children from a very early age. And you've mentioned it's for all ages. So we can start, as toddlers and up through high school, and then lifelong learning. We can continue that ourselves. And moms, I think when we start to do this type of activity with our kids, we're going to really feel the benefits ourselves. We get stressed. I get stressed anyways.
Really?
But every now and then. but what is it when you can just go out and inhale that air and pause? That's going to do good for your own spirit, your own soul. And your mental framework is going to change because you've been out there. I just am so jazzed about what all we can do outside. And I hope that our listeners are getting the sense of that as well. So we've talked about some different places that we can go. We have, many of us might have even a backyard, but some don't, some live in an apartment or something like that without that. But you work in a public garden, so there are public resources for us. And I think we can talk a little bit about where can we go in this world? It may seem like an obvious question, but there's probably a lot of hidden gems like the Arboretum at NC State or in other people's communities. So let's talk about how these public spaces are a great resource for us as homeschoolers.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I did not visit our own Arboretum where I work now in Raleigh until my middle child, my son, was getting ready to graduate. And somebody said, oh, let's take graduation pictures down at the Arboretum. I'm like, the what? And I feel kind of dumb now because this was a hidden gem, like you said, that a resource, and I never even knew it existed. So you might have to do some digging. We are connected to NC State University. We are a public garden, but we are also a living laboratory for the students at NC State. And so there's lots of different audiences that we're reaching as a public garden associated with the university. So if you have a large university, I would encourage you, near you, I would encourage you to look to see if they have something similar. Many of the state universities are doing, and it's primarily because of the research, the plant research that's going on. And connected with that, with a lot of state universities, would be the extension service. And those are the folks that operate things like the 4-H programs and other community-based educational. The extension service is supposed to be the bridge between a state university and what it's being funded to investigate and learn about, and a bridge to the community. So there are a lot of opportunities through your state extension service if you have a state university. And I think most states do. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not up on all of that.
I believe they do. Yeah. I've lived in a number of different states, and you look up the Agricultural Extension Office on the internet, you're going to find something.
A wealth of information. That's, again, their whole role is to educate, to take what's happening in this scientific community and make a bridge it and provide that information to the community at large. So those are good places to start. I think I mentioned earlier, you've got lots of parks that you can explore that are on the city level, the county level, the state level, and the national levels. It's always great to go to a national park, but you don't have to find some really good programming at the local level. And the cool thing about that is you are really going to dive deeper into what is important and what's happening around in your environment right where you live, which I think is really important. But then, like I said, like when you go on vacation and you go to a totally different type of area, seeking out those areas in learning more about their environment and their issues, they may be very different from the ones that you are dealing with around where you live. So you've got all of those, and there's, I just can't imagine that there isn't a city park close to somebody somewhere that you can get outside and enjoy some fresh air and sunshine. Museums, water parks, any of those kinds of places are going to have lots of programming available to you. Again, that's their job, that they want to invite you to come in and learn more about what they know, with exhibits, and not just stagnant exhibits, but also hands-on kinds of activities and programming too. I think there's a real movement towards that. Again, you can find a lot of this virtually. You can find a lot of virtual field trips, but I would always choose a regular field trip, a real physical field trip over a virtual one. But if you're in a position where you want to gather information and you want to learn about a specific topic, and there is something virtual available, I guess it's better than nothing, but I would always opt for the in-person experience before a virtual one. So.
Oh, that's a great point, because the internet is a wonderful tool, but it's not concrete until we go out and put our hands on something.
Right.
And there's really something to be said for that when we're learning the hands-on approach. I would just add, you mentioned 4-H, and as a beneficiary of 4-H myself, I spent years doing 4-H activities. We won't take my lack of ability to grow things as no judgment. It wasn't their fault. I'm just gonna say, but those things are great. And I would say this as well. There are some organizations that you might have to pay a membership fee for.
Right.
and look at those that have the ones that the fees or the membership where you can go to different places.
Yes.
That have a number of institutions as part of that one fee. So you get the most, economy for your dollars that you do spend. And, and I would also say in your communities, consider that our libraries are great sources of learning. And, you can talk to your librarian about what you would like to see being put in their programming. So you can talk about, wanting to do more nature study type things through their programming. Also, the parks around you may not offer any kind of program to help you engage with that type of education. But if you ask, they're usually willing to accommodate. They're happy, like you said, they're so happy because you're helping fulfill their desires by being a willing audience that wants to learn. So I would suggest that you think about what you might like to learn more about and engage with those resources in your community. But if there aren't any resources like that, go out and just do this yourself. Don't let that stop you.
Right. You don't have to be part of a formal program to really take advantage of the few of the things that we've talked about today. Yes, I was going to mention, like, the American Public Gardens Association is a professional organization of botanical gardens across the United States. And they do have a reciprocal membership agreement. So when you, for instance, our garden is not ticketed. You can come in free. But we do need the support of our community. And so one of the benefits when you join our membership is that reciprocal membership in other public gardens. Yeah. Many public gardens do need to ticket, in other words, they charge you to come in through their gates. But because of their need for funding, everybody's, different botanical gardens will work different ways. But that reciprocal membership is worth its weight in gold because you can visit so many more locations because you're a member of your garden in your home location. And there's more information available about that, probably through all of the gardens and their membership support things.
Well,
same with aquariums and zoos. I think there's similar to those kind of reciprocal memberships.
Well, we're kind of winding down on the time that we have to talk today. Is there anything else you want to just add in closing for us to get out there?
This may be a total different rabbit trail, and I don't want to open a can of worms, but I do want to share a personal observation and experience from my homeschooling that is kind of like the elephant in the room, maybe a little bit. And that is, sometimes I was very afraid to take my kids to specifically science-based places because I was afraid of what they would teach about origins. And I'm a creationist, but I work at a public university that fully embraces the theory of evolution. And, I wish now that I had not been so fearful about, I consider that I was fearful about taking my kids to some places because I was afraid of what would be presented and taught. In reality, they're going to be exposed to all of those things as adults anyway. And so I do think it's an important opportunity for you to use it as a jumping off point to talk about what you do believe. And the bottom line is, when I'm teaching at the garden, there are so many different things that we can agree about that's observable science that is not related to origins. And I felt like I shortchanged my kids a little bit by just automatically assuming that they weren't going to teach from a perspective that I would approve of, and instead make sure that I would go and take advantage of what was there and was observable science, and then address those issues individually as they may or may not have come up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We need
there are some
Obviously, yeah. Mm-hmm.
that we can agree on, and that are, we all have different. Again, we all have make different observations about and make connections about why things may or may not be the way they are or where they came from. But that's all part of the discussion too, and really solidifying what you believe and helping your kids to navigate all of those questions. So I guess that's just from personal experience. I wish I hadn't have been so hesitant about some of visiting some of the places that I think they would have benefited from.
Yeah.
So maybe to hold on to that a little bit more loosely. I don't know. But again, just using it as an opportunity to discuss with your family, then your perspectives and why you may or may not think differently than the prevalent professional position or scientific position.
Right. So. It's we obviously need to use a lot of discernment about where we go and carefully consider, but I appreciate you sharing your hindsight, the wisdom you have in hindsight, because as you mentioned, our children will see and hear all kinds of different worldviews, and we're trying to equip them to understand what is out there, and also to cling to the truth that, and the values and things that we have, we know to be true. And so, I would, think about what Joy is sharing here and pray about where you should go with your children and who you should expose them to and at what ages and things like that. There's a lot of discernment we need as parents. So thank you for sharing not only that insight, but all the expertise that you have come to have through homeschooling and through your education experience here at the Arboretum. And I think that our homeschool audience is going to be inspired to go outdoors and explore the wonder that we find in God's creation.
Yeah.
I do too. I also want to thank you, our audience, so much for tuning into today's episode of Empowering Homeschool Conversations. If you're looking for more resources, support, and encouragement on your homeschooling journey, be sure to visit Homeschool Heroes, powered by SPED Homeschool. At Homeschool Heroes, you'll find free downloads, a supportive community of parents, homeschool-friendly providers, and expert consultants ready to help you confidently teach your child at home. Plus, explore tools, products, and services designed to simplify your homeschooling efforts, all from a trusted nonprofit that understands the unique challenges of homeschooling children with learning differences. Join us at spedhomeschool.com to connect with resources, inspiration, and a community that's here for you every step of the way. Let's make your homeschooling journey extraordinary. Thank you again, Joy, and we'll see you all next time on Empowering Homeschool Conversations.
This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com. This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com.